Coming up, we're talking all things language in the classroom with today's special guest, Stuart McNichol. How important is standard English in the classroom? What is standard English? Am I speaking it right now? And why is it such an easy and regular cause for controversy?
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and you are listening live. Tune in live at ttradio.org, or to join in the conversation, download the Podbean app and search Teachers Talk Radio. Follow the hashtag TTRadio. Tune in, talk it out with Teachers Talk Radio.
Do love that dramatic music, and what could be more dramatic than standard English? Most things, actually, but there you go. So today, as I said, we're talking about standard English, capital S, capital E, which is not the same thing as incorrect English, which we'll be unpacking over the course of the show. Promoting standard English in the classroom is part of both the 2014 national curriculum and the teachers' standards for England. So what is it? We all think we know. And we often are inclined to say it's correct English. Well, I'm going to go straight to Wikipedia because actually I'm that kind of teacher who says, no, really, kids, start with Wikipedia and then go somewhere else. So we're going to start with Wikipedia today before we go to an expert. Here I am modeling good practice. So in an English-speaking country, standard English is the variety of English that has undergone substantial regularization. So basically, it's associated with formal schooling, language assessment, official print publications, high status newspapers, and it's local to nowhere, which is quite a beautiful phrase that I'm going to say again. It's local to nowhere. Of course, as we'll be discussing with Stuart, some of it started somewhere. It contains formerly regional forms of grammar or language that are now no longer associated with anywhere because, of course, it is, again, local to nowhere. My cats are fighting about standard English right now in the background. It's very dramatic. The little one wants to say, no, estuary English and other forms of London-based regions are non-standard and incorrect, but he's wrong. So sort of if you've been watching the opposite of Love Island, it's the opposite of Brad. Brad does not speak standard English. Brad rather beautifully and incomprehensibly speaks the dialect of Newcastle. Headlines that I pulled before the show started. Why I insist on standard English in the classroom from 2020. Teaching children standard English, it's not about speaking like the Queen, 2017. Ian Cushing, 2020 article on language discipline and teaching like a champion, pulled a lovely as in rather horrifying thing from a school in the north of England that said staff should model behaviour, i.e. no chewing gum, standard English should be used at all times, dress should be appropriate, mobile phones should not be used. So we're associating the use of standard English with behavioural issues, with control of the body. If you're a fan of Foucault and other things like that, Cushing's article is wonderful. I'll put a link up to it. Also caused some controversy on Twitter at the time because there is nothing edgy Twitter likes to argue about more than either one, behaviour, or two, standard English. And the beauty of his article is that it ties those two things together. We're also going to be looking at accents, which are, of course, completely different, but related in several ways. Alexander Baratta, in a short piece on this that I'll link for you, studied teachers in the UK, initial teacher education practices, and in 4 settings, he found that, and I'll quote here, teachers in the UK often feel under pressure to change their accents. It appears that many teachers, notably those from the North and Midlands, shout out to Asbo teacher, one of Badger Ed, and his extreme Cov identity, not necessarily reflected in a Coventry accent, are being told by mentors to adopt a more general, less broad version of their accents to help construct a more professional identity. So we've got particular local grammars versus standard English, and then we've got accents. And the other thing we'll be discussing, I hope, if we have time, because there's so much to say here, is a particular thing that's been rolled out in an awful lot of school settings, including my own, not necessarily used, but in some schools very much insisted upon. Ours, it was more a notional thing at the beginning of the year one time. Full sentences. encouraging oracy by asking for answers in full sentences. Now, if you've listened to the show before, you know I've discussed this with Jasmine. There's a Doug Lemov has a particular phrase for it that I can't remember. And since Jasmine's not online, she can't tell me. But the idea that when we ask a student a question, they should respond in a full answer. How are you today, small child? I am very well today. Thank you for asking, teacher. This sort of back and forth. There's quite a lot of argument that actually models, what's the argument? Clarity of thought. Here's a nice quotation from a blog. Something as straightforward as stating that students should respond in full sentences significantly increases the impact of a talk task. So nice one from a blog here. Someone really strongly makes the case for it. I'll put this link up too. When a pupil would start an answer with "'cause," I would cut them off and say, economists at the Bank of England don't begin sentences with "'cause," and you are training to be a world-class economist. So please start again with a full sentence. Or this person would say, the more we practice speaking as we will write in an essay, the better the essays will be. And then they say it may sound slightly cringy, but they found that the pupils bought into the idea quite quickly, especially as they started to see results. So one of the things I'm going to be asking Stuart is if economists at the Bank of England really do speak in full sentences with each other and never start them with "because." Do they really say, what is the stock market doing today? Thank you for asking, Peter. The stock market today is doing very well. Maybe they speak like that. Maybe they don't. We'll find out. I have, as ever, gone back to my early 19th century educationalist because whenever I hear arguments about sentences and full sentences in the classroom, I go back to the enormous fashion for home education manuals written largely by women, which use dialogues to do education. So today's interesting treat is Priscilla Wakefield, Domestic Recreation, or Dialogues Illustrative of Natural and Scientific Subjects from 1807. Love me a bit of Priscilla Wakefield. She churned these things out, made a living from turning out educational materials of what I have to say are dubious value. So this one, the setup of all of them is you have an imaginary family. You get to know them, their whims, the things they like, the kinds of questions they ask. And this is Mrs. Dimsdale and her daughters Lucy and Emily discussing natural and scientific subjects. And the section of the book I found at 5:30 before I came on live is all about essentially the developing world of anthropology, deeply problematic discipline in the 19th century. And you'll see why in just a second. So this illustrative dialogue begins with Mrs. Dimsdale, like any good home educating mother. Lucy, let me look at your work. You do not appear to have made much advancement. Lucy, wise to her mother and anxious to change the subject, instead says, I should have done a great deal more, but to confess the truth, my attention has been engaged with considering what stupid people those South Sea Islanders are, about whom you read yesterday, to be contented with such inconvenient huts, when they might be more comfortable by building houses like ours and furnishing them as we do. The excitement here is wondering if Mrs. Dimsdale is going to fall for this obvious ploy to do some ethnic slurs about South Sea Islanders instead of explaining why you've not finished your knitting. And in fact, she falls for it. Numberless arts of which they are wholly ignorant are requisite to complete it, etc., etc. The next dialogue, perhaps even worse. Emily and Lucy go to the mother. Mamma, we have a favour to ask. What is it? Says Mrs. Dimsdale, constantly falling for their tricks. If it be a request proper to be granted, you are sure of my consent. But if you are conscious that it is otherwise, do not put me to the pain of a refusal. Such natural parental dialogue. Emily, it is only to excuse our evening walk, and instead of it, to sit with us on the white beach on top of the hill, and tell us how the savage tribes improved and learnt such a vast number of useful arts. So notice there, they've got out of their evening walk now, got out of the homework, got out of the evening walk, and all through the use of full English sentences. Right, so I'm going to play the news, and then we're going to ask Stuart to join us and discuss those things. Again, standard English, accents, full sentences, and a huge variety of other things that will come up. Let's listen to the news. I'll be playing it through my iPad, so forgive the slightly lower quality today.
This is Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
Thousands of children in disadvantaged areas in England will be offered nutritious breakfasts in the next 2 academic years to better support their attainment, well-being and readiness to learn. A healthy breakfast can help children and young people with their concentration and behaviour, according to a government press release yesterday, Friday the 9th of July. Family Action has been confirmed by the Department for Education as the delivery partner for the National School Breakfast Programme, building on the government's commitment to level up children's outcomes across England. Backed up by up to £24 million of government investment, Family Action will source and deliver breakfast food products to schools from September, and through the programme support up to 2,500 schools over the next 2 academic years. Children and Families Minister Vicky Ford said the National School Breakfast Programme is a fantastic scheme, helping some of the most disadvantaged children across the country kickstart their day with a good, healthy meal, which can be so important in helping their concentration and behaviour during the school day. David Holmes, CBE and Chief Executive of Family Action, said in the same press release, "We are delighted to be delivering the new National School Breakfast Programme, having delivered the previous NSBP since 2018. This is great news for hundreds of thousands of children across the country who will have access to a free, healthy school breakfast without barrier or stigma. We know this gives children the very best chance to learn from the start of their school day." The National School Breakfast Programme, according to the government, continues their commitment to levelling up outcomes for young people with their education and getting them back on track as they recover from the pandemic, particularly focusing in disadvantaged areas. Thousands of children will also continue to benefit from the Holiday Activities and Food Programme, expanded nationally this year with a £220 million investment, which will continue this summer in every local authority across England, free for children eligible for free school meals. On Friday the 9th of July, Amanda Spielman, Ofsted's Chief Inspector, discussed the impact of COVID-19 and the recent work of the Association of Directors of Children's Services annual conference. In a speech, Amanda Spielman took time to thank everyone for the hard work that they'd put in working with children and families in the most difficult of circumstances. She pointed out that nobody would disagree that the pandemic had been extremely damaging for many children and that COVID had been tough on everyone, but that the Inspectorate was concerned with what was best for children and looking forward to moving into the future. "We all want children to get the best start in life," she said, "and a good education lays those solid foundations. Take these away and what comes next becomes unsteady and uncertain. Most children have taken a knock over the last 16 months, but for some, the damage runs deeper and will take longer to fix." She spoke after education sites had been closed to most children for much of the last 16 months, and that schools and colleges have struggled through relying on remote learning, and that in some places this had been better than others. She pointed out that teenagers were doing more practical courses at college had lost out too, because it's been impossible to get the same experience at home. There was also mention of the emotional side effects of the pandemic, with children cooped up, not being happy, who miss their friends and the important social side of being at school and college. She also referred to toddlers and preschoolers having spent most of their young lives in lockdown, which was hardly an ideal start. She ended her speech by commenting that whilst lots of things had been challenging over the last several months, that there was much hope for the future and that she looked forward to speaking to the conference in person at an alternative time next year. And finally, whether you're a football fan or not, the question is on many England students' lips at least, is whether football really is coming home. Many schools in England are reporting that they're allowing students to have a slightly later start on Monday morning so that their pupils are able to better enjoy a late night Euro final. Due to the 8 o'clock kickoff and the possibility of extra time and penalties, many head teachers have made concessions to their pupils, allowing them to attend at 10:30 rather than the earlier time. Hopefully, it will be a positive result. This has been your weekend news.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, I was heckling the news. Is Stuart McNichol around? Can you join us? Call in. I'll just fill some dead air while we wait for Stuart. So the first thing we're going to ask about is what standard English in the classroom is. He's trying. Worst comes to worst, Stuart, you can always type your answers, and it would be an odd form of interview, but I'll just talk a little bit about Stuart while we're waiting for him to be able to log in. You're pressing call in. But any Teachers Talk Radio peeps out there can explain to Stuart where things are going wrong. Glory Birth has entered the live studio. Fascinating name. Again, while Stuart's trying, I'll just say that I use non-standard English all the time, quite deliberately in the classroom. That's my particular take. But I also use it. Obviously, we all use it. Ironically, we code switch in and out of standard English. But one of the ones I was talking about yesterday that I've ended up doing is there we go. Hi, Stuart. Can you hear us? Hello. Yeah, this is working perfectly. I just finished my awful anecdote, which was just to say that one of the ironic usages I've done is to pick up on the local multicultural London English habit of dropping the preposition. So, to go toilet, you ask to go toilet. And I began ironically saying, Miss, would you like to go Harrow to my friend? And now I just say it by mistake. It's very contagious. Is this what happens when you allow non-standard English to enter the classroom, Stuart? Is it an inevitable decline? Yeah. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us so early. It's a ridiculous time, but you're finished for the summer, aren't you? So yeah. Ah. So I garbled through the Wikipedia guide to standard English, and then some of the controversies. It is the easiest way to kick off a fight on edgy Twitter is to say, I think standard English in the classroom is not necessary. Yeah, then everyone loses their minds. So, can you talk to us a little bit, general topics, standard English and the classroom, and all your fancy words that I happen to know the meaning of because I teach Lang Lit, like accommodation theory. Make sure you stop and explain them, clever boy. Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Mm, mm. Oh, high standards. High standards in English, high standards in uniform. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm. Oh, please do. That's why I called you on, Mr. McNichol. Mm, mm, mhm. Well, I think what can I just pause there? What's really fascinating there is as you say, the initial conceptualizations of it and discussion of it position it as a written form and not a spoken form. And what we end up endlessly discussing, in various controversial things is the use of it as a spoken form in the classroom. Yeah. Yeah. Mm, mhm. Right. Well, but sorry, just to pull you back there to the well-read. You've got the well-bred and well-read go together there, don't they? It's all about literacy. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Mm. Well, which I don't know if you were listening to my preamble, but that was that rather beautiful blog about teaching your students to speak in full sentences. That was how do people in the Bank of England speak? Let's imagine what they do, and then speak like our imagined version of the Bank of England. Yeah. Mm. Mm. uh, we're all about the rabbit holes. It's 7 something in the morning, rabbit hole away. Yeah. Mhm, mm. It does make sense, but what I'm also thinking is that you said that, well, like, mid-19th century, they're doing that. We're really only 100 years since standardization of spelling as well. So they go hand in hand. I mean, what year is Johnson's dictionary? Swift, and I know Swift has a lot on dictionaries. I've got Bailey's dictionary. We've got standardized spelling, but that's really an 18th century project, isn't it? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mm, and corrupted. Yeah, yeah. What's Again, you say, is it okay if we do rabbit holes? I will rabbit hole away. One thing that's really interesting, I'm really interested in the particular um, social phobia attached to some forms of speech that are really gendered, but now that it's always associated largely with female speech, it's also racialized, of course, as well. But the idea that filler, such as like, is particularly everyone uses filler, obviously, right? Yeah. Um, but the ones associated with teenage female speech are the ones that are most derided. Yeah. And but just fascinating that it was young men whose language was the most terrifying to Jonathan Swift. Yeah. No vocal fry in 1710. Yeah. Mm. Wait. We need to define that. You and I are talking about this. Yeah, yeah. Mm. Could you do an impression for it? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. What I tell my students is that it's Valley Girl speak. Yeah, totally. Yeah. No. That I'm old. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Vintage. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. Oh yeah. He just is vocal fry as filler. He'll just go for a while. Yeah, yeah. I That will be the title of this episode. Noam Chomsky is walking vocal fry. Okay. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm, absolutely. Yeah. Well, to remind you where you were before I dragged you off target, we were in the mid 19th century. We had associated this language, emerging language of standard English, with imagined literary speakers of said language. Yeah. Hmm. 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 Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Can I just say, I've now decided from listening to you that being a linguist must be the most frustrating thing on the internet. Just so, like, literally no. I don't once grammar, even what the word grammar means. My lord, yeah. Mm. Uh-huh. Mm. Mhm. Mm. Sorry, sorry. I love the idea that like linguistic shift is associated literal filth. You are literally filthy. Yeah, yeah. Mm, mhm. Yeah. Oh, deviants. Deviate from language, become a deviant. Yeah, absolutely. And Norman Tebbit is a man who cares about purity after all. So, yeah. Mhm. Uh, well, I just love the idea that teachers are just I yeah, sorry, carry on. Yeah. Mm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm, yeah. Mm. Not teaching them commas. Yeah, yeah. Ooh. Ugh. Split infinitives, no less. Wow, okay, yeah. Mm. That's so for those of us listening who, don't know what it is, in Latin, you can't split an infinitive, and therefore, in English, you should not. So, "to boldly go" is the most famous split infinitive, from Star Trek. So, yeah, it's a purely theoretical problem. You have to buy into the concept that it's a problem. It doesn't sound wrong, it doesn't be wrong, but yeah. Mm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, I ain't. Yeah, people go to. Yeah. What? And then allowed us to imagine the non-standard versions of the with horror. Yeah, yeah. Ooh. Oh, yeah. Mm. Mhm. Yeah. uh No, they don't. No, no. It's an impossibility. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Relative to what? Yeah. Mm, mm. While still saying some people speak it all the time. So we're clearly identifying a social group to whom you should aspire linguistically and socially. Um, yeah. Right. I am going to pause us for a second. I'm going to play our adverts because capitalism is great. And when we come back, we will. No one seems to have questions yet, so that's good because I thought we'd got some pushback and argumentation. Um, we'll start talking again about why it might not matter if kids aren't speaking standard English in the classroom. All right. If you just don't unplug, stay online, or everything will go hideously wrong, and I'll be playing these through the iPad.
Every teacher loves stationery, right? Imagine getting a selection of fun, beautiful, and unique stationery items designed and selected especially for teachers, delivered through your door every month. You need to check out teacherslovestationery.club.
I'm always so excited when the box arrives. It's such a treat.
My Teachers Love Stationery Club box is just a little treat to myself every month.
It's always full of delightful and surprising items, including some really good quality stationery brands like Faber-Castell and Stabilo.
And because you never know what you're going to get, it makes it even more fun and special when you get it.
It feels really great to be supporting a family business that's run by real teachers. I can't help feeling like they just know what I'm going to enjoy using stationery-wise better than I do myself.
Visit teacherslovestationery.club and enter the code TTRadio when you buy your first stationery box to save £2 today. teacherslovestationery.club.
Okay, 1 second. Second ad coming up. This might be the same ad. Forgive me if it is.
Every teacher
Yep, sorry. 1 sec.
Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. At Creative Resources, we've been rethinking what a classroom can be. We've created a huge range of more than 2,500 original and exciting resources that span across more than 15 different subject areas. Whether you're looking for primary or secondary level resources, careers options, PSHE, arts, or humanities, Creative Resources have the resources for you. We offer full curriculum packages and unique, challenging escape rooms themed on topics such as Shakespeare, Tudors, and fractions. We have quizzes, task cards, Tarsia puzzles, and lots more. Better still, more than 100 resources can be accessed for free. Just visit our website, www.cre8tiveresources.com. You can get 10% off any order you make on our website by using discount code TTRadio. Creative Resources, made for teachers by teachers. Every teacher loves stationery, right?
All right. Thank you very much. Stationery got in there a couple of times. Trish has message to say, Trish, who by the way is my Key Stage 4 leader and personal queen, to say we're all too confused by what standard English is now. And I think that's actually the point, isn't it? We aren't really precise about what standard English means. Everyone just rather sententiously says, well, standard English is good. People speak standard English or are, but without ever unpacking what it means. And when people start explaining it, they stop listening. So standard English in the classroom then. So Trish is saying, again, never heard about it for literacy in Ireland. So Trish is Irish, did her schooling in Ireland. She says we just mutter through. But obviously you're code switching between languages, literal languages there. You're being instructed in Gaelic as well as, your dialect, etc. And there's not this particular fetishization attached to the idea that one can speak the high prestige form of literary English, probably because we're in a post-colonial situation to no small extent. But that's a rabbit hole. Let's go back to standard English in English classrooms then. You're still on the mic. Can I just say when they announced that in our briefing, there was this kind of collective intake of breath from the English department. Like, "That's not how sentences work!" But, yeah. No. Yeah. Mm, I think so. Yeah. Mhm. That's a beautiful comparison. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And also, but there's a kind of creeping argument that it will make them think well too. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mm, mhm, mm. Mm. Mhm. Yeah, right. Right. It would have been understood with greater prestige, and therefore we would have accepted what you were saying more successfully in the classroom as a spoken form. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Right, which takes us straight back to the sort of crassest version of this, which tends to be, I think Catherine Berbelsing quite notoriously, some point earlier in the year, said that we needed to teach children about Mozart so that they had something to talk about at future dinner parties with business clients. So again, like very, very quite specific imaginary scenarios where we want this child to be able to talk to the people we imagine that this child will talk to one day in our fantasy of the future. Yeah. Governors of the Bank of England. Mm. And what's fascinating about, so just to rabbit hole for a second. What's I've in a former life I was an 18th century specialist, and when you read 18th century novels, the characters with the most marked slang and the most difficult to understand language, the ones who speak in cant, are the poshest. It's the beaux and those people. They speak near incomprehensible language. It's the middle classes who are generating what we now call standard English. That's yeah. Yeah. Mm.